November 24th, 2025. That was the date the email dropped. It was supposed to be a standard press release, the kind that usually gets buried under NFL highlights or off-season trade rumors. USA Basketball released the list of names invited to the training camp in Durham, North Carolina. 18 names. The absolute elite of the women's game. You scan the list and you see the future immediately. You see Caitlin Clark. You see Paige Buchers. You see Angel Reese. It looks like a changing of the guard, a coronation of the new era that has taken the ratings by the throat and shook the sports world awake. But then, you look closer. You look for the name that is supposed to be there, the name that has been the bedrock of American dominance for the last half-decade, the reigning MVP, the three-time MVP, the woman who just finished putting up numbers we haven't seen since Wilt Chamberlain. And her name isn't there. A'ja Wilson, omitted. And just like that, the internet didn't just break, it declared war. This isn't just about a basketball camp. If you think this is about who plays point guard in a scrimmage at Duke University, you are missing the entire picture. This moment, this specific roster announcement, is the collision point of everything that has been simmering under the surface of the WNBA for the last 2 years. It is the intersection of generational conflict, financial envy, perceived disrespect, and the cold, hard mechanics of institutional power. It is the establishment versus the phenomenon. The narrative that formed within seconds of that announcement was predictable. The comment sections lit up with the same vitriol we've seen all season. One side screaming that this was the final disrespect, a deliberate erasure of the league's best player to make room for the new marketing darlings. The other side whispering that maybe, just maybe, A'ja Wilson didn't want to be there, that she was bitter, that she was jealous, that she couldn't handle the spotlight shifting to a rookie who hadn't even won a playoff game yet. You've heard the whispers. You've seen the tweets claiming that Wilson is petty, that she's hating on the young stars, that she's furious about the shoe deals and the endorsements and the media coverage. It's a compelling story. It has a hero, a villain, and a clear motive. But here is the problem with that story. It is built on feelings, not facts. And when you actually dig into the financial realities, when you open up the contract offers and look at the timelines that the public ignores, that entire jealousy narrative falls apart. So, let's do what the timeline won't. Let's strip away the emotion and look at the machinery behind this snub. Because when you understand why A'ja Wilson isn't on that roster, you realize it wasn't a defeat, it was a flex. To understand the magnitude of this, we first have to dissect the roster itself. This wasn't a random lottery draw. The list for the December camp is a calculated geopolitical move by USA Basketball. Look at the names. You have Caitlin Clark, obviously. Her presence signals the official start of the Clark era in international play. She is the engine of the economy now, and USA Basketball knows that where she goes, the cameras follow. Then you have the collegiate icons, Paige Buchers, Angel Reese, Juju Watkins. This is the holy trinity of the NCAA boom reuniting on one court. This is a signal that the program is trying to integrate the massive college fan bases that have finally started to migrate to the pro game. It's smart business, but here's where the snub argument gets its legs. If this was just a camp for the future, a junior varsity squad designed to get the young kids some reps, then A'ja Wilson's absence would make perfect sense. You don't send the CEO to attend orientation week. But that is not what this roster is. Look who else is on that list. Brittany Griner, Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, Jackie Young. These aren't rookies. These are Olympians. These are veterans. Brittany Griner is 35 years old. Chelsea Gray is 33. If the argument is that A'ja Wilson was left off to rest the veterans, why are veterans older than her suiting up? If the argument is that the Aces players needed a break after a grueling season, why are 3 of A'ja's own teammates packing their bags for Durham? This inconsistency is what fueled the conspiracy theories. It's what allowed the A'ja is being pushed out narrative to take root. It looks personal. It looks like the committee, or perhaps the coach, decided that the chemistry wasn't right. It feeds into the idea that there is a silent war happening behind the scenes, a battle for the soul of the league. But there is a detail here that almost everyone missed, a detail that explains the who and the where much better than any conspiracy theory. The camp is at Duke University, and who is the head coach of Team USA? Kara Lawson, the head coach of Duke. This is Kara Lawson's house. She controls the environment. And having icons like Caitlin Clark and Paige Buchers on the Duke campus is the single greatest recruiting advertisement in the history of college basketball. It generates content, buzz, and viral moments that benefit Duke directly. Aja Wilson, she is a South Carolina Gamecock. She is royalty from the rival kingdom. There is a natural competitive friction there. Aja Wilson doesn't need to do an infomercial for Duke. Furthermore, look at the basketball philosophy. Kara Lawson preaches handle hard better. She runs a pace and space offense. Laboratory. It is likely designed specifically to test Caitlin Clark. Lawson knows what Aja Wilson can do. Aja is the ultimate known quantity. She is the cheat code. You don't need to see if Aja Wilson fits into your system. The system is Aja Wilson. But Clark has holes in her game, specifically on defense. This camp is a stress test. Lawson needs to see if Caitlin Clark can guard Chelsea Gray. She needs to see if Clark can run the offense with Brittany Griner clogging the lane. So in a way, Aja's absence isn't a snub. It's a graduation. She doesn't need to take the test because she already wrote the textbook. But that explanation, logical as it is, doesn't satisfy the emotional hunger of the internet. The internet wants drama, and the fuel for that drama is the perception of envy. The narrative that Aja Wilson is sitting at home, fuming, watching Caitlin Clark take over her league. This is where we have to talk about the money, because the jealousy narrative is fueled almost entirely by the perception of financial inequality. The story goes like this. Caitlin Clark came in and got everything Aja Wilson had to work years for. The private planes, the sold-out arenas, and most importantly, the massive Nike shoe deal. Let's address the shoe deal, because it is the most contentious element of this entire rivalry. In April of 2024, Caitlin Clark signed an 8-year, $28 million deal with Nike. It included a signature shoe immediately. At that time, Aja Wilson, a two-time MVP and a champion, did not have a signature shoe announced. Then came the tweet. You remember it. Aja tweeted, "Always remember what is delayed is not denied." The media ran with it. They framed it as bitterness. They framed it as Aja subtweeting Caitlin, complaining about her own lack of a shoe. It fit the angry veteran archetype perfectly. But here is the reality that never made the headlines. Aja Wilson had been developing her shoe with Nike for over a year before she sent that tweet. The deal was done. The designs were being finalized. The delay wasn't a complaint. It was a hint. It was a wink to her fan base. She wasn't crying about Caitlin's money. She was celebrating her own incoming empire. Nike's strategy here wasn't about picking a favorite child. It was about market segmentation. They treated Caitlin Clark like a pop star, mass production, high volume, available at every sporting goods store in America. They anticipated she would sell volume like Steph Curry or LeBron James. But for Aja Wilson, they treated her like a luxury brand. Her shoe, the AO1, was marketed with scarcity. When it dropped, it wasn't flooding the shelves. It was a limited release. And what happened? It sold out in minutes. The 3,000 pairs rumor that people used to mock her sales numbers wasn't a failure. It was a hype tactic. It was the same strategy Nike used for the Kobe Protro launches. They created a frenzy. So while the internet argues about who sold more, Nike is sitting back and cashing checks from both sides. One is running the boutique, the other is running the department store. Both are winning. But if you really want to destroy the jealousy narrative, you have to look at the one piece of information that nobody is talking about: the Unrivaled League. This is the smoking gun. This is the detail that flips the script upside down. The Unrivaled League, the new 3-on-3 winter league founded by Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, was desperate to sign both stars. They knew that to launch this thing into the stratosphere, they needed the two biggest names in the sport. The rumor on the street was that they threw the bank at Caitlin Clark. And they did. $1 million? $2 million? The numbers were astronomical for a few weeks of work. But sources indicate something fascinating. Aja Wilson was arguably offered more. Why? Because in the basketball industry, among the players, the coaches, the GMs, Aja Wilson is still viewed as the ultimate guarantor of quality. In a 3-on-3 format where there is nowhere to hide on defense, where isolation scoring is everything, Aja Wilson is statistically the greatest one-on-one player in the world. The league founders knew that for the ratings they needed Clark, but for the product to be legitimate, they needed Wilson. And what did Aja Wilson do with that historic multi-million-dollar offer? The kind of offer that would dwarf her WNBA salary. The kind of money that people kill for. She said no. She turned it down. She looked at a 7-figure check and said, "I value my peace more." Think about the leverage that requires. Think about the confidence that takes. If Aja Wilson was truly jealous of Caitlin Clark's money, if she was truly bitter about the financial disparity, she would have snatched that unrivaled contract the second it hit the table. She would have chased the bag, but she didn't. She prioritized her rest. She prioritized her mental health. She prioritized her off-season. So bring this back to the Team USA roster. If Aja Wilson turned down millions of dollars to play basketball this winter because she wanted to rest, why on earth would she agree to fly to Duke University to play in a training camp for free? The snub wasn't a rejection by Team USA. It was a rejection by Aja Wilson. The internet screamed that she was left out. The reality is she likely opted out. She looked at the schedule, 3 straight years of non-stop basketball, WNBA seasons, World Cups, Olympics, and decided that her body was worth more than the media's approval. This brings us to the most uncomfortable yet most important part of the conversation: the speaking fee rumor and the privilege dynamic. There is a viral claim floating around that Caitlin Clark commands $100,000 for a 30-minute virtual speaking engagement, while Aja Wilson does charity events for free or for a fraction of that cost. Whether those specific numbers are verified or not, they represent a very real feeling in the ecosystem. There is a sense that Clark is corporate safe, while Wilson is viewed as the activist. This disparity is real. It is a legitimate source of systemic frustration. It's not about hating Caitlin Clark the person. It's about hating a system that values a rookie's potential over a veteran's proven dominance. It's about the unspoken divide that has always existed in marketing black versus white athletes. The fans, particularly the stands on both sides, have turned this into a proxy war. The comment section is a battlefield. Team Clark fans scream that Aja is a gatekeeper, a bully who hates that a white girl is taking over the league. They analyze every side-eye, every hard foul, every tweet, looking for evidence of this petty behavior. Team Wilson fans scream that Caitlin is a product of privilege, that the media is erasing black women to prop up a great white hope. It's toxic, it's exhausting, and frankly, it's mostly fiction. Because while the fans were tearing each other apart, trying to start a race war in the YouTube comments, do you know what the players were actually doing? They were de-escalating. Look at the Time magazine interview. This was the moment where the media waited for the explosion. Caitlin Clark was asked about her privilege. It was a trap question. If she denied it, she would look tone-deaf. If she accepted it, she might alienate her base. Clark answered perfectly. She admitted it. She said, "I've earned it, but privilege exists. Black women built this league." She acknowledged the shoulders she was standing on, and everyone waited for Aja to attack. Everyone waited for the petty response. Instead, Aja Wilson responded with 2 words: "I'm grateful." She called it powerful. She validated Clark's self-awareness. In that moment, they weren't rivals. They were co-worker navigating a messy media landscape. It showed that Aja Wilson is politically astute and that Caitlin Clark is self-aware. The hatred is a projection from the stands onto the court. So where does that leave us with the Wilson-Clark paradigm? It leaves us with a fabricated controversy masking a strategic brilliance. The absence of Aja Wilson from the 2025 roster is not the end of her reign, it is the confirmation of it. She has reached the level of prestige where her presence is requested, but her absence is accepted. Kara Lawson and USA Basketball are building the machine for 2028. They are using this camp to integrate the new components to see how the gears of the Clark era fit into the engine of the Wilson dynasty. They are integrating the massive fan bases of Buickers and Reese. They are keeping the Aces veterans involved to maintain the culture. And Aja is doing exactly what a queen does. She is resting. She is letting the kids run around the yard while she sits on the throne. We have seen this movie before. In 2016, Candace Parker was left off the Olympic roster. That was a snub. That was a firing. There was genuine conflict there. In 2020, Nneka Ogwumike was left off. That was a tragedy based on injury and system fit. This is neither. This is load management. This is asset protection. The media needs a villain. Without a villain, the Caitlin Clark story is just girl plays basketball well. That's boring. They need conflict. They need an antagonist. And Aja Wilson, by virtue of being the best, has been cast in that role. The snub headline drives engagement. It validates the anger of the Clark fans who feel their idol is being disrespected by the old guard. And it validates the anger of the Wilson fans who feel their MVP is being erased. It is a perfect storm of engagement. And it works. You are watching this right now because of that tension. But as we look toward the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics, the reality is going to be much scarier for the rest of the world than it is for the internet comment sections. The internet wants them to be enemies because it is entertaining. The internet wants a civil war. But imagine the alternative. Imagine a world where A'ja Wilson, fresh, rested, and in her absolute prime, steps onto the court alongside a Caitlin Clark, who has had 3 years to refine her defense and master the international game under Cara Lawson. Imagine the pick and roll. Imagine the spacing. The internet is fighting over a roster snub that isn't real. They are fighting over a jealousy that doesn't exist. They are counting pockets that are already overflowing. The Wilson-Clark paradigm isn't a collision course. It's a merger. And when that merger finally hits the floor in 2028, when A'ja Wilson catches a pass from Caitlin Clark for a gold medal 3, the internet is going to break again. But this time, it won't be because of a snub. It will be because the rest of the world just realized they never stood a chance. The establishment didn't crumble. The phenomenon didn't fade. They just decided to stop fighting and start winning. And for A'ja Wilson, the first step to winning that next gold medal was knowing when to say no to a flight to Durham. She isn't missing. She's waiting. And that should terrify everyone.